Yeah.
From my point of view as a Wigan fan, when the couple of goal line dropouts were forced, I started to worry because we'd made an error in between that as well to put pressure on ourselves. And I've got almost always unwavering faith in our energy levels and defensive levels, but it was pushing it at that stage after 50 minutes. So did you think something was on the cards for Saints then at that stage? Did you feel like you might create something?
Well, I always felt that there was a chance. So throughout, but it was only we were only going to get that if Wigan made an error. Basically, we weren't going to find a cheap way of getting through. Miracling our way through the line. It was going to have to be somebody slipping over, or just someone, because they were so tired, not retreating properly, not getting in at the A marker, or something like that was what was going to get us the opportunity to score a try. If Wigan just kept the concentration as they had been doing, then it was difficult to see how on earth you were going to get through. But I felt if we could keep the pressure up, something might come.
And two chances did come, didn't they? Sort of one around the 53rd minute and one about 5 minutes or so later. So the first one was the disallowed try, Zeb Taylor. Chris Kendall called it the match officials together called it as offside on the field, so it went up as no try. And as if we needed anyone to add to the tension, Sky decided to just stop the replay 2 frames before it should have been stopped for about 3 minutes. Why did they do this to us, David?
I don't know. And at that stage, I thought, hey, he might be on here. But it was only when they actually ran it properly you could see, no, he wasn't on. And not only that, but he knew he wasn't on. So, Zeb didn't even celebrate when he put the ball down. So I think he knew he was offside. But for a minute, I thought he might have been onside, but he wasn't.
What was the neutrals' take on that one, Tim, at that stage? Did you think it was going to get given?
I wondered at first, but then I thought, well, as it's gone up as a no try, it looked dubious to me in real time.
Yeah.
It looked certainly close, and so I didn't think much of it. I mean, just before that, was it just before that we had the Bibby overrun, the first of the Bibbies?
I can't remember when the first one came. People have said in various amount of chances. I think he had about 5 chances, but from varying difficulty levels. So it might have been the earlier ones of those that were a bit further out, and you kind of knew he didn't have the pace.
Yeah,
but it was definitely before the hilarious one and the successful one and the dropped one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I made it 3 decent ones, which was the overrun just before, which I think was just before. It's before in my notes anyway.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
There's the spare tyre one.
Right.
Then you had the falling over, which was comical, but it's I sort of didn't blame him because he didn't really have anywhere to go. And I think he thought it was wetter than it was, that he might be in with a chance of sliding. If he was at pace...
I don't think he thought he was going to get there. I think he was trying to not go out of field. But you're skipping ahead of a chance, I think. So we'll talk about Bibby after we've finished talking about Saints' 2 chances. Because James Roby did the only play other the kick was a close one. Obviously, it went to the video referee, and then finally, once they played the right amount of frames, it was clear he was offside. But about 5 minutes after that, Saints were still putting the pressure on Wigan, and the one time that I actually felt worried defensively, Roby picked up the ball and I didn't see where the defenders were, and Chris Kendall took one of the defenders out completely accidentally, but under the sticks Kendall got in the way of one of the defenders. But Tommy Luluai and Willie Isa came from nowhere to stop the score. I think it was those two to stop the score from Roby scooting from dummy half around about the hour mark, and that kind of felt like the last time Saints had a realistic chance of scoring a try.
Well, right at the end, obviously.
Yeah. So did you think you'd maybe let your chances go with the close margin on the kick and Roby getting held up just short by a very determined, equally as determined as on the Zach Hardacre chance that Saints were?
It was frustrating, but equally brilliant defence from Wigan. That we didn't find our way through. You've seen Roby score that try so many times in his career, but I didn't feel like it had gone, Mark, in that sense. I mean, obviously, you can look back at after the game and say, well, after that, there were, Wigan then really did start to create some chances and indeed got on the board. But it was so close, and we were dominating territory pretty well.
Yeah.
That I kept feeling that at some stage something would happen. A gap would open, someone would make a mistake, and we'd get a try. But the fact that we actually didn't right until right at the end, didn't stop me feeling reasonably confident that at some stage we would.
Well, it was the free ages of Jake Bibby next, wasn't it? So
it was.
So Tim, you've already talked about one of the chances. I think building up to this, Wigan throughout the game had managed to create some space out wide, but probably didn't quite have the pace in a game defended with this intensity to make those breaks stick. But Jake Bibby had a few chances, Tim, and you were working through those.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the first one where it clearly just overran where he was pitching. The second one, I mean, he fell over, but I don't think he had anywhere to go. So I think he was obviously trying to keep himself in field rather than go out. And it just felt like as I said, he expected it to be wetter than it was, that it might have given him a chance. So he could have, if it had been a bit wetter, he might have slid certainly a few metres, although he was still a fair distance out.
He hit the floor like I do into the deep end, Alan. That was just, I went, it was like a belly flop.
It wasn't pretty, and it was not graceful, was it? That's
the groundsman won't be thanking him for that, will he?
There was a dent down there.
Yeah, please replace your divots.
And that's what makes me think he wasn't trying to score. He was trying to not get pushed into touch. I don't know, but we'd seen Saints' method of defence for a while, and certainly against this Wigan side, was steam in from the centre and the winger, and then rely on the half-back and the full-back to cover behind. So that's how the Saints had set themselves up to defend Wigan out wide anyway. We'd seen it work once on the other side of the pitch. So I think what we were seeing was it working again on this side of the pitch. But Wigan wouldn't let it go. They forced a few opportunities. Was this when Theo Farge had the drop ball as well, leading to one of the... Yeah, so Wigan put some pressure on the kick, didn't they? Theo Farge went to take the kick after he'd been charged down and fumbled it, which gave Wigan another chance. And at this point, like we just talked about, Wigan were threatening. It was...
Definitely.
If it wasn't Jake Bibby on that wing, Wigan would have scored a try already, I think. Marshall or Manfredi would have taken one of those two chances, was generally the consensus amongst the Wigan group chats, the Wigan fan group chats that I had going on at the time. But Jake Bibby stepped up and did what he did last year against St Helens and scored a try. It was fantastic work, particularly from Bevan French in the build-up with the quick hands to finally get one on time out to him in space, enough for Bibby to score. And Wigan took the lead with the first try of the game, and that was on 66 minutes. So
and every credit to the rest of the Powell and Luloi for coming back out to him as well, for making the play down his side after he'd had two that hadn't gone his way. It'd be quite easy to just give him one on, try and switch it back the other way, or try something else, but they were relentless in that they kept going down the same side.
Yeah, I think they'd spotted that something, and I'm not quite sure what it was, but I think they had spotted something and thought that we were maybe just slightly out of position with, the gap between two of our defenders wasn't quite right. And so they decided they were just going to keep coming down that side until they got a big enough gap to get over in the corner. And the Wigan players are smart enough. Once they spot that, they'll come back at it unless you fix it. And we clearly didn't fix it up.
I think the key thing was the role that the people inside Hardacre and Isa maybe could play, because we knew that the winger in the centre were flying in, and it was how much could you hold up those other two men that might cover across. Yeah. And the timing was right on that play to hold them up enough that Bibby had no one coming across to cut him down, like we'd seen on the other plays earlier that we talked about. So yeah, I was obviously absolutely, but this was where my noise level was sky high. And then we could argue maybe that the Taya thing was the first moment of real inches in the game, but then came another really tragically falling short moment from a Wigan perspective, but I'm sure you were cheering it, David. Zach Hardacre's touchline conversion. Straight as an arrow. I don't think we've seen a kick more from the touchline that was more central on the sticks than any kick we've seen all season.
I thought it was over, for sure. I thought it was over. Because when it left its boot, you can always tell, as soon as it gets above the crossbar, you can tell, is it going to be close or is it going in? And you could see straight away, as soon as it got above the height of the crossbar, oh, this one's right on the middle. So I thought it was definitely going in. I couldn't believe it when it came back off the crossbar. I was obviously delighted, but I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, high tension, that moment. And that made the score 4-2. And then, I don't know how to describe the last 15 minutes. Someone else want to take over the running commentary? Alan?
I suppose a question first is, do you think that Hardacre was composed enough for his conversion? It did seem like he took it quite quickly. Do you think he rushed into it when he could have taken a minute? I know he wanted to get on with it, but at the same time he could have taken a bit more time, compose himself and get that.
It didn't occur to me like he'd taken it too quick or that he wasn't in the right frame to kick it. It was a tough kick. He should have the leg. He didn't have the leg, just marginally. Maybe it was more that he was pushing more on accuracy than power, is maybe what I think, Tim, and that's why it didn't quite make it more than that. He rushed through the kick. That's my take on it from having watched him a lot. Is that maybe he was determined more for accuracy than power?
He's a bit inconsistent, isn't he, Hardacre? Some when he's got his eye in, some days he just will not miss from wherever he kicks, and then on other days it doesn't quite work. It can be a bit sort of hit and miss.
So then Wigan 4-2 ahead, and Theo Farge started dropping his head. Yeah, we all content on that. Theo Farge's head started falling round his nipples somehow.
He got hit in the forehead by Hastings, I think. That's what you mean.
So there was the first penalty, wasn't there, where Farrell tackled him from behind, reached across, grabbed his shoulder, and somehow Theo Farge's head managed to end up on his arm. I mean, you can see why that was given as a high tackle. The arm contacted the head at the same time as it contacted the shoulder on that one, on the tackle from behind. Fair enough. Really, crucially, I don't know what your guys' take on this is, but Saints passed up the opportunity for a penalty from 40 metres out close to the touchline that would have tied it.
Yes, we did.
Knowing his limitations, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen him kick them from there, and I think they were thinking about it. I was humming and hawing in the room as to whether they were going to have a go or not. And even after they decided to kick for touch, I was like, nah, maybe we should have had a pop from there and see whether we could get the ball dead and get the ball back. if he didn't score. But I think Cooter decided no, it wasn't the right thing to do. I don't think they got a call from Wolf not to take